Welcome back to part 2 of episode 4 of our conversation with Lisa Baskott. If you haven't already checked out part 1, please do so. You'll find that on our podcast channel and our YouTube channel. Join us again now for part 2, where we dive a little bit more into what Lisa's going to be tackling in the future in the security industry. I did a little bit of research before we came on about SIA statistics and licenses through the government page, where the SIA licensing feeds directly in from. And in 2021, there were just over 369,000 licenses. That's right. And 10% of that was women. I'm probably telling you what you already know, but for the listeners and for the viewers. And in January 2024, there were just over 431,000, but that number was still at about 10% for women. It was 10.87. Yeah. So there's been an increase in the last 3 years of 0.68% overall for new women coming into the industry. But I suppose the only kind of straw you can clutch at with that is just short of 15% of those new licenses are women. So there are more women coming into the industry. I mean, what message do you put out to women to encourage them to come in? Because let's call it as it is. It is a male-dominated industry and has been since the dawn of time. What is it that you're doing that's helping to bring women into the industry and make it appealing?
I'd like to think that the work that I'm doing is twofold, and it has to be, right? So I'm having a conversation with the industry about that transformational, that transformative piece that needs to be happening in order to meet the needs of that sort of huge gap in skills, right? And also gender, blah, 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 blah. And so what the interrogation that the industry needs to do at an organizational level is to ensure that if they are talking about diversity, and when I talk about diversity, I'm talking not just race or gender, I'm talking about everything, ability, neurodiversity, you name it, right? That this is actually the centerpiece of everything they do. You know, it's tied into their mission, it's tied into their values. When they have, tenders, and that is first and foremost, right up front and personal in terms of everything that they do. But also it's about recognizing that they have to invest in changing really crucial processes within their organization. So the recruitment and retention process in and of itself is a massive, massive area where you can have some seriously quick wins if you were just willing to do the job, right? So we live in a world where the mobile phone is ubiquitous now, right? Everybody, I can't even remember how many billions of handsets there are out there. I speak to so many security companies about the way in which they are still insisting on going about the recruitment process, right? If you think about the recruitment process as a funnel, and the widest part of the funnel is where you want to get in as many different types of people, right, as you possibly can, and then the whole process, goes like that, and then you end up with a handful of people that you really want to do the job. It's not about tokenism. It's about making sure that you fill the widest part of your funnel with as many of the, let's say, underrepresented groups of people as you possibly can, and through the natural process, you start to filter people out, and then you end up with a pile of people that are fit for purpose. Add to that the fact that in this kind of industry, especially at the frontline level, people have got 1 or 2 jobs already. So expecting people to come in for a first interview just for a chit-chat, right, is nonsense. You can do that chit-chat on a bloody mobile phone. You can have a video conference. You can do whatever. You can do that for the first 2, even 3 parts of the interview process. And at the point when you really think that you're finding that pool of people, at that point, get them to come in and meet 2 or 3 other people within your organization. But by insisting on this sort of antiquated kind of view of the recruitment process, you are immediately going to sign off about 25% of your potential audience. Women who, we have about 17,000 other roles that we play. We pick the children up from school, we drop them off at school. So expecting people to come in for an interview at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning when that is on, that's a school run. But these are pools of people that are probably going to be absolutely ideal for the role. So you've got to change the way in which you view that process. You've got to make sure that it aligns with the use of technology, video technology, mobile phone technology. And you have to put yourself in the shoes of the audiences you are trying to attract. You cannot expect them to come to you. We've tried that for 20 years and it hasn't worked, right? So you want more women, you think about what it is that you need to do to make it as easy as possible for those women to be a part of that beginning process in that funnel, right? Because if you do that properly at the start, it's more likely that you're going to get more women as part of your final batch. Yeah? But if you're already starting a process that's ruled out 50% of those women, then don't be surprised if you get to 3 months and you haven't had one woman applying for the job. And it's things as simple as that can absolutely fundamentally change the response that you get to positions that you post, right? But you also have to think about the language that you use when you are posting those ads. The English language is a male skewed language, right? And so if you put out a post about a, operations director role, if you pulled off a job, ad from 20 different security companies, every single one of them is going to use the same kind of language. And that language is not going to be the sort of language that is going to attract women, right? It's just not. Because what women do, not all, but some, is that they will be more than qualified to do everything in that job spec. But because what we do is that we tell ourselves that we can't do this, we will discount ourselves, right? Oh, well, they're using that. Oh, no, I can't do that. I can't do that, right? A man, not all men, but they will have 2 or 3 things that they are qualified at doing, and they will be throwing themselves forward. And we need, women need to have a bit more of that going about them. But what I mean is that we need to think about using gender neutral language, right? So that it isn't skewed automatically. Because remember, we're already, as women, trying to operate in a man's world. So when the language that you use in any kind of marketing or job description basically says, that doesn't sound like me, then already, if you think about it, this is at the very start of your process, this is going to have a massive knock-on effect to the numbers you get at the end of let's say a 3-month period. Do not be surprised that, having all of this hard work that you've done, you're like, oh, I've had 2 women apply.
How do you fancy writing a few advertisements for us, Lisa?
I would absolutely love to help you, and it's not difficult. It's not difficult, but we're just not used to doing it, right?
Yeah, I think,
and we're lazy.
Talking about Adept specifically, so we have a security and a cleaning side of the business. So combined, we actually hit 51% women. However, when you just look at security, I'm almost embarrassed to say that we're actually it's 8.67% is our women in the security side of the business. So it is something we don't really have a target set. Perhaps I think we need to sit down and agree what the target is. Whether the target of 51% is achievable in a short space of time, I think we need to change the ways we sort of recruit quickly and drastically. So I think I would be interested in having a conversation offline about that.
Because you do realise so much is going on in this industry, right? Just in the world, right? Just the issues that we have with recruitment. It's not just a security issue; it's across the board. It's hospitality, construction, you name it. But what the security industry has an issue with is this massive challenge of overcoming perception about the industry, right? And I maintain, I say to everyone, it is the single biggest issue that the industry faces. And the only way that the industry is going to overcome this is if it has collectively a collective voice around changing that perception, right? So, the modern security operative is about communicating. It's about reflecting the people in their communities, etc., etc., etc. It's about empathy. Yes, physical skills sometimes comes into it, but again, remember in the training, this is a last resort that we're going to do. What you should be using 80-90% of the time is that, right? Using your verbal and non-verbal skills to control and prevent situations from happening. And I think we need to, as an industry, reflect the things that are happening in society, and finding and adapting the roles of the people and the skills of the people that we are looking for to do that job effectively, right? Look at what's happening in retail, well, it's across the board, but look at the levels of violence and organised crime and how it's having this disproportionate effect on retail. Now, retail affects me. I'm Lisa, woman, I'm Lisa, mother. I don't want to go shopping and see a woman or a man on the door doing their job, being racially abused or have homophobic slurs thrown at them just for doing their job. That's going to have a knock-on effect to me. I'm me, general public, not with my security hat on, right? And these are things, this is what I mean with our industry. We are in this sort of unique position whereby we can do so much to help bring about change in some of these other areas, right? We're not the answer. We're not the police, but we have kind of filled that role. And we have to, once we can't fill the role and make loads of money out of it and go, it's not my problem, right? You can't have it both ways. If you're going to fill that role, then there has to be some responsibility that goes with it and levels of duty of care. And I genuinely believe that you can't have one without the other. And I think the industry has had this little battle with itself, because it was like, oh, we'll take all that money that we're making from it, thank you very much. But, train our staff, no, continued professional development. Are you mad? That sounds like a lot of money. I'm not doing that. Got to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm slightly interested to know, you mentioned that you'd had conversations with sort of like people around the top 10, top 20 within the industry. Have you been able to get a foot in the door with like any of the regulators in the industry, the training providers, the SIA, companies like that?
Yeah, I mean, so Michelle Russell and I, so Michelle was one of the first people that kind of opened the door for me, but I think she was just scared when she met me a year ago, because I was all sort of nervous and fired up. I met her almost a year ago on International Women's Day that week, and there was an event going on at Spotify, and somebody said to me, oh, the regulator's here. I was like, oh God, Lisa, this is your chance. Go on, go and do your thing. And I kind of sort of got myself, I had a little drink, and then I went over and I went, hi, this is who I am. You don't know me, but I've got a few things that I need to say to you. This poor woman was just like, oh God, who is this? But then once she kind of got over that, she was like, God, you're a bit of a breath of fresh air. You've got plenty to say, and I think there are lots of people who want to hear what you've got to say. So from the get-go, I think she recognised that I was coming from a place of, I'd like to think, sort of authenticity. There was no agenda. I wasn't tied to any company. I just wanted to see things done properly, and I wanted someone to listen to the things that I'd seen, and I wanted to show them that I wanted to be part of the process bringing about change. And I think that's what they saw. So from the beginning, Michelle Russell has been a real champion of me as a CEO of the regulatory body, the SIA. And then through her, I had dealings with some of the sort of top 20 security companies. And as a result of that, I was invited to be one of the newest members of the National Security Skills Board. And the Skills Board is industry driven. And the idea is that, as an industry, finally recognizing that we have to take responsibility for the output within our industry, and that we have to take that. We can't be looking to the regulator to do that. And so they've come together to work out ways in which we can create critical pathways for people. So not just for people within the industry. If you come into the industry at doors entry level, You should be able to see a really clear pathway about, do I want to go down the route of intelligence? Am I looking at cybersecurity? Am I looking at HR, intelligence? Is it, facilities management, or is it this, right? At the moment, or up until 18 months ago, it was just a mist, right? You just would not even have a clue. And if we're having that issue internally, imagine what it must be like as an external person potentially looking to transfer skills and come and do. It's impossible. And as an industry, we're in a state of flux. And until we sort ourselves out, we're going to have to look outside of the industry to bring in the necessary skills, right? And unless we can have a clear pathway for someone who works in engineering or hospitality or, advertising, which is where my background is, right? And stop talking about roles, right? And stop talking about which security company you've worked at. Talk about skills, because that's what we're missing, right? So at a front line level, what are the key skills that you need to do that job? At a supervisor level, what are the skills we're looking for, right? Managerial level, what skills do we need? And that's what we need to be, and that's how we need to be conversing with people, in particular outside of the organisation, because I really believe in the next couple of years, we need to be honing in on other industry sectors and transferring those skills across. And that's where the other part of my conversation comes into play, because I'm having a conversation with our industry, but I'm also taking my conversation out to other sectors and saying, listen, I know you won't believe me when I say it, but there are some amazing opportunities over here in this industry sector. And I know you probably wouldn't even think about it. And I know that the image that you have of the industry is this, but listen to me. Look at my story. Look what I've done. Let me talk to you about the avenues that you can go down. And it's about addressing all the stakeholders, so at an education level. So I speak to sixth form colleges, I speak to universities about how about thinking about putting modules in related subjects like law or computer science or whatever, where there's a natural synergy with certain aspects of security, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's intelligence, whatever, right? You can see, and you're not going to get immediately, a degree in security, but what you will get are courses that will consider adding modules that are reflecting some of the big key things, skill sets that we're looking for in our industry sector. And I think that's the way you start. And then you build on that. And then ultimately what we really want is for kids at my son's age. So Jack is in his first year of GCSE. I would love in the few years' time for some element of security or introduction or the principles of security to be there on the agenda for him to choose as an option. In the same way that, back in the day, you would never have thought that you could put PE as an option, right? But now it's there because we know it's a multi-million-dollar, whatever, industry sector. And there are all of these different avenues that have grown out of the changes within the sector. So we're talking about, nutrition, we're talking about, physiology, all of these things are new skill sets that have come out of that industry sector. I believe there are things going on in security that we haven't even addressed yet in terms of skill set. There are jobs that I don't think have come up yet that I think will come up in the future that we need to be kind of getting ourselves ready for and getting our young people ready for. So there's just a whole host of work to be done, but it genuinely needs to start with that sort of education piece and working out how we can get it on the radar of education establishments, and then obviously through legislation and policy with government, cementing that into the curriculum, but that's, how long that would take. But I definitely think at sort of university level, there are conversations that could be had whereby there are people coming out of uni, and absolutely security should be one of the things as an industry sector that we will want them to be thinking about, right? And there's no reason why they shouldn't be. But because we haven't put ourselves in the best light, we're not even on the agenda. And that's our fault, right?
Yeah, I
You know,
think
they can't know what they don't know.
yeah, it's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because I mean, the industry has been so hell bent on, in some cases, not all cases, but being a race to the bottom. It's all about profit, and then everything else will come. It'll just come naturally later on. I think there needs to be a collective paradigm shift, industry wide. So if we can make some small steps towards that, then that's all good. I think just as we kind of come towards wrapping up, obviously you've got your recruitment firm. You do work with the Skills Board and the Safer Business Network. How do you see the next few years going for yourself? What would you like to maybe sit down in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years and think, I've helped achieve this? What are the goals for you going forward?
Last year was a phenomenal year in terms of exposure and just amazing conversations with people at every single level and avenue within the industry. And that has helped me forge what a thought process that has been going on in my mind since the beginning, since the start of the process. And that has been, and I keep coming back to it, it's about systemic change. It's about changing the narrative of an industry, helping it make itself fit for purpose. And that means, covering every avenue from, pay to diversity to training, you name it. But for me, it is the role that private security now plays in wider societal issues. So, for example, for me, part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing and the trigger was violence against women, right? So seeing that news bulletin about Sarah Everard, that was a trigger. As a woman, that was a trigger for me. As a mother of 2 teenage children, my trigger. It's personal. I want to do something different. I want the world to be a different place. So I want to prioritize that. And I want to align the work that frontline, in particular frontline security can do to help with that process. And then again, on top of that, another wider societal issue is the issues around the lack of inclusivity in communal spaces. How do we make communal spaces within communities much more inclusive and therefore much more resilient? And Martin's Law obviously falls within that conversation. So essentially what I was subliminally doing for about 18 months is curating an event. And the event is going to be a roadshow that will basically highlight these 3 pillars for me: the transformational change bit within the industry, the prioritization of women, preventing violence against women and girls and marginalized groups, and building resilient communities, making sure that the spaces, whether it's a football terrace or a car park or a park, that we are doing the best we can as communities to make sure that they are fit for purpose. And I'm going to take this framework and I'm going to take it around the country, and I want all the key stakeholders within each of those pillars, within each major city in our country, to start having conversations, because to bring about systemic change, we need to have the same conversation at the same time. All right. And if we want to benchmark change, then we have to be talking at the same level about the same things. So that's my challenge for the next sort of however long. The first event I'm in the process of sorting out now. It's going to be in Brighton, because Brighton ticks as a city. It pretty much ticks all the boxes that most major cities in the country also do tick, in as much as they tend to be quite diverse. They have a big gay community. They tend to be they're huge university towns. And in and of itself is a big issue. And they tend to be sort of go-to destinations, whether it's Liverpool or Manchester or whatever. So I've created a framework for us to be able to have the same conversation across the country, but but personalising it with the sort of stakeholders that I invite to the event on the day. So I won't be having the same people in Liverpool as stakeholders as I will in Manchester, but they will be the same type of stakeholders, if you see what I mean. And it's all about, it's about your community. It's about coming together and having a voice whether you are a door supervisor, a mother, an aunt, a brother, a sister, whatever. I keep saying to everyone, safeguarding is everybody's problem. You know, you can't fob it off to the police. You can't fob it off to door supervisors. It's not schools' problems on their own. It's all our problems. And I want to have this conversation, and I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be in the room and have a conversation with the regulator, if she happens to be one of the stakeholders there, or a mighty or an adept, right? But I think that the days of not talking about stuff and sitting down and expecting somebody else to do something about it, I hope that I've laid the claim and made people realise that those days are over. If we want to see change, kind of get off our backsides, and we've got to do something about it.
Definitely,
100%.
So does that mean we're invited to the event? Can we come down, Lisa?
Yes, you will be. When I come up to Leeds, and there will be an event in Leeds, of course you are going to see one of the stakeholders.
So look forward to that.
Fantastic.
Good.
Alan,
Good.
do you guys have any more questions at all for Lisa?
I think going back to the SIA, and you mentioned about changing the training. I was kind of, as you were talking, I was thinking about modules about equality, diversity. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. But with all of these things, it's about putting the training into context, right? So when you talk about those issues, put them into the context of the work that you're actually going to be doing. So whether that's training around scenarios, or I don't know how you want to do it, but it needs to be less dry. The way that it's presented at the moment, is just, people will just not remember, or they won't be able to make the kind of the quantum leap when they're on the door and they've got a trans person standing in front of them. They won't be able to go, oh, right, okay, the Act says, you've got to show people how to put that into practice, or how it will affect them in practice. And I think really the SIA, it's just a commitment to rejigging, repurposing what they've got. The content is there, but it doesn't reflect the world that we live in at the moment. And that's what I think, I mean, for example, as door supervisors, we're not health and safety officers, yet there's an awful lot of time that is spent on, working out, being able to remember what colour, a fire hydrant is. Oh, black's for this. Why do I need to know that? That's not what I'm going to be faced with, in my 8-hour shift when I'm standing on the door. So why are we wasting time on that? And there are so many elements of that training where you can just kind of go, we just need to park that rubbish. We don't need to talk about that. And we really need to think about this. And I just wish they'd be more bold about it.
Hopefully that answers your question, Al.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, just before we finish, if people wanted to reach out to you for any recruitment needs or anything like that, where can people get hold of you?
Well, my website is the easiest place, and on social media. So my website, my company name is Second, as in 2ND, Line of Defence. So you can find me, just Google me. And then I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. And I'm, constantly writing stuff on LinkedIn. And I really do. I invite anyone and everyone to have a conversation with me, because I want to know what's going on in your local area. I want to know whether what I say resonates with you, and I want to link up with you when I start moving around the country and shouting from the rooftops about what I think needs to happen in our industry. I want to make sure that all of those people want to come along and listen and get a chance to throw some questions out at the people that are making decisions in our industry, right?
I think the worry for me is you've highlighted how much we need to do at Adept. So,
you know what? I'm really up for, I am more heartened by organisations who say, put up their hands up and go, we're not there, but we're trying. I will spend all day talking to organisations like that. I have bigger problems with organisations that are telling the world that they're ticking those boxes already, and they damn well aren't. Yeah. And that's my problem. And I'm beginning to lose patience with some of them, just put it that way.
good luck with everything, and if ever we can support in any way, we want to get to where you want it to be. So we probably need a few kicks to push us along, and we'll make sure we act upon things.
Well, when you get to that stage, I mean, just about sort of look, I don't know how far in advance you work on your sort of strategic plans or whatever, whether they're 2 years or 5 years or whatever. Just as part of that process, just have a holistic think about what your company, what you want your company to look like, and what physically what's that going to look like? It's going to be 5% more women. Are there going to be more people of color above supervisor level? Is there going to be a woman on the board? And it's not about you're not going to do these things the next day, because it means that you have to put things in place. So training, learning and development, succession planning, right? All of these things have to work in tangent with your mission.
I think, there's a long way for us.
But just planning for it is good.
Yeah, we do have a woman on the board, which is positive. But
wonderful.
From an operational point of view, the 3 leads in the business are the 3 people you're looking at now.
It's not very diverse.
Not diverse at all. So a lot of work still to do. But I think we know where we need to get to.
Do you have within your organisation? Do you have an HR function, or do you have a sort of a learning and development function, or is it?
So we have an HR function. We've got 2 individuals. I mean, compared to some of the businesses you're talking to, Lisa, we're a very small organisation. So
I get you.
Mighty's 600 million, whatever it is these days. We're 8 million. So we're 530 members of staff. So very very small in comparison. But sort of from a percentage point of view, we're still failing. I think just over 8% of women in the security side of the business. So. And
to be quite honest, actually, that's probably in line with the SIA, because those figures that they give you, they're not. Yeah. I don't believe them. I think because what they tend to do is that they skew the figures of non-frontline licenses. They don't split them out, and women tend to show up higher in non-frontline licenses, so the managerial ones. So I think they throw those figures in to buoy it. I reckon that the SIA that's actually active frontline women is probably around the 8% mark.
Yeah.
So in that respect, you're on par. But the fact that, as you say, in 3 years we've not moved.
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
So I think, if we do some work behind the scenes on where we think we should be, it'd be good. I mean, the 3 of us will come down to Brighton and get some lunch with you and have a proper chat and see.
It'd
be
what brilliant. Be really good, because this is where I really believe that I can make a difference. Sitting down with people and saying, "Let me help you. Consult with me. Let me help you devise a plan," and it's a realistic one. You don't want to be setting yourself up to fail. And you have to look at your business organizational structure and where you want to be, but just make a commitment, right? Because when you make that commitment, you can shout it from the rooftops, and you can put that in your advertising and your marketing when you're trying to attract women. If you can say, "Look, this is who we are, this is what we've committed to, come on board, help us achieve this," right?
I'm almost going to be like a lot of the other companies you spoke to. I'd love to commit to 50%, but it genuinely scares me. It sort of makes me think, is it achievable? But we'll come down to Brighton and we'll have a good chat, and then
that sounds great.
See what we can commit to.
Come when it's not like this, because it's shit outside. It's absolutely. It's been pissing it down for days. I'm bored of it.
We're northerners. We're used to. That's good weather for us. We're used to it.
I know, it's constantly bloody raining in Manchester and Leeds and whatever. Brilliant. Oh well, listen, I'd welcome you with open arms. So whenever you're ready, and I could talk about this till the cows come home, but let's do it.
Right, cool.
We'll sort that.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, guys. Have a lovely day.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.